The air in the Siberian sector didn't just bite. It chewed. It was a howling, white void where the trees grew like jagged teeth, and the wind carried the scent of frozen iron. High above the canopy of black pines, the heavy-lift transport, a modified, matte black gunship, nicknamed the Sleigh, thundered through the permafrost clouds. Inside the hold, the red light of the jump deck bathed the team in the color of fresh arterial spray. At the center sat Santa. He wasn't the soft, bumbling saint of folklore. He was a mountain of scarred muscle and white hot rage, his beard matted with dried grease and cordite. He wore a sleeveless vest of reinforced caribou hide over tactical Kevlar, his massive biceps tattooed with the names of forgotten wars. He chewed on the stump of a black cigar, the cherry glowing like a dying star. Across from him sat Frosty. He wasn't made of snow anymore. He was a combat-engineered golem of high density, magically hardened ice that never melted. His eyes, two glowing blue apertures in a face of frozen granite. He checked the action on his custom-built cryogenic rifle. "You're late, Nicholas," Frosty rumbled, his voice like glaciers grinding together. Santa didn't look up. He sharpened the edge of a 6-foot, obsidian-bladed axe. "I don't go where I'm told, Frosty. I go where I'm needed." The rest of the squad was a rogues gallery of the lethal and the lost. Rudolph, the scout, sat nervously twitching, his nose a cybernetic infrared designator that pulsed a faint, rhythmic crimson. Hermie, the medic, was obsessively sharpening a set of serrated dental surgical tools. Yukon Cornelius sat on a crate of silver nitrate explosives, humming a low tune as he checked his belt of bearded axes. Jack in the Box, a twitchy psychopath strapped into a spring-loaded hydraulic exoskeleton, sat cradling old Painless, a multi-barreled minigun that looked too heavy for a mortal to carry. And in the corner, silent and looming, was Bumble. The Abominable Snow Monster was 10 feet of matted white fur and primal killing instinct, his claws long enough to get a bear in a single swipe. "Rescue mission," Santa growled, standing up as the jump light turned green. "The rejected elf clan took my wife. They've gone rogue, holed up in a valley fortress. We go and we extract her, we burn the rest. No survivors. This is a naughty list operation." Part 1. The Blood in the Pines. The jump was a drop into a freezing hell. They hit the ground like falling anvils, disappearing into the waist-deep snow. Within minutes, Bumble had the scent. He moved with a terrifying, silent fluidity for a creature of his bulk, leading them through the skeletal trees. They found the first sign of trouble 3 miles in. It wasn't the rogue elves. "Holy mother of... Look at this," Yukon whispered, stopping dead. Suspended from the branches of a massive larch tree were 3 figures. They were skinned raw, their muscle tissue frozen into red crystals. They hung upside down, swaying in the wind like macabre ornaments. The blood had pooled and frozen into jagged stalactites beneath them. "Elves?" Rudolph asked, his red nose flickering rapidly as he scanned for heat signatures. "No," Hermie said, stepping closer to inspect a dangling entrail with a professional eye. These were Green Beret extraction teams. Look at the dental work. Precision. Whoever did this didn't just kill them. They took trophies. Santa spat his cigar into the snow. "Move out. Stay, Frosty." They reached the rebel camp at dawn. It was a cluster of hovels built into the side of a frozen cliff. The rogue elves, twisted, soot-stained creatures with sharpened teeth, were celebrating around a bonfire of human bones. "Jack," Santa signaled. "Happy New Year, bastards." Jack in the Box shrieked. The hydraulic hiss of his exoskeleton preceded the roar of the minigun. A wall of lead shredded the camp. Elves were disintegrated instantly, their small bodies exploding into puffs of green ichor and tattered wool. Santa moved like a whirlwind, his axe cleaving through torsos and skulls. One elf tried to raise a crossbow. Santa's axe took his head clean off, the cranium spinning through the air like a bloody puck. Bumble was a blur of white fur and red moss, snapping spines like dry kindling. Frosty moved with chilling efficiency, his cryo rounds shattering targets into thousands of frozen shards. In the center of the carnage, they found her. Miss Claus was tied to a stake, her face bruised but her eyes burning with a fierce, cold light. "Nicholas," she shouted as Santa cut her loose. "We have to go." Now, isn't the elves you should be worried about? Something was watching them. Something that feeds on the heat of a living. We're getting out, Santa said, throwing her a submachine gun. Extraction is 5 miles north. Part 2. The Ghost in the Static. As they retreated through the dense Siberian thicket, the atmosphere shifted. The wind died down. The birds went silent. Rudolph was in the lead, his nose sensor scanning the brush. I've got something. No, it's gone. It's like the trees are moving. Stay tight, Santa barked. Suddenly, a shimmer appeared in the air. A ripple like heat, haze, and a freezer. A 3-dotted laser sight, neon blue, ghosted across Rudolph's chest. Thwip, a jagged, telescoping spear of bone, an obsidian tore through the air. It struck Rudolph in the throat, the force of the blow pinning him to a tree. His cybernetic nose flared one last brilliant red before the life left his eyes. Blood sprayed across the snow in a hot, steaming arc. Contact. Jack in the Box screamed. The forest erupted. Jack swung the minigun in a wide arc, the barrarity of the weapon chewing through ancient pines. With chips and frozen needles filled the air. The rest of the team unloaded their magazines into the emptiness. A cacophony of thunder and muzzle flashes. Ceasefire. Santa roared. The silence that followed was heavier than the noise. They peered into the darkness. There was no body, no blood, just a vast swath of decimated forest. We hit nothing, Bumble growled, his fur standing on end. It moved like the wind. It's hunting us, Miss Claus whispered, her voice trembling. It doesn't see us as people. It sees us as game. Part 3. The Misfits fall. The retreat became a nightmare. The predator, a towering biomechanical nightmare with skin the color of bruised ice and a mask of polished bone, moved through the canopy with impossible grace. Jack in the Box was the next to go. He was reloading his minigun when a pair of retractable wrist blades, shimmering with a blue energy field, erupted through his chest from behind. The blades twisted, sawing through his ribs with a sickening crunch of bone and metal. The predator lifted him off the ground, Jack's legs kicking uselessly as his internal organs spilled onto the snow like wet fruit. The creature let out a clicking, rhythmic growl that sounded like a distorted laugh before vanishing back into the shimmer. Yukon, grenades, Santa yelled. Yukon Cornelius pulled the pins on 2 silver nitrate canisters and hurled them at the shimmer. The explosion rocked the forest, coating everything in a fine caustic dust. I got him. I saw blood. Yukon cheered, but the blood was a glowing neon green phosphor. Hermie rushed to help Yukon, but the predator was faster. A shoulder-mounted plasma caster hissed. A bolt of blue fire hit Hermie square in the face. His head didn't just explode, it vaporized. The smell of charred flesh and burnt hair filled the clearing as Hermie's headless body slumped into the red-stained slush. No, Yukon screamed, swinging his bearded axe wildly. The predator materialized, a towering 7-foot wall of muscle. It caught Yukon's axe arm and snapped it like a dry twig. Yukon's scream was cut short as the creature grabbed his jaw and his scalp, and with a single guttural heave, ripped his head and spinal cord clean from his body. The vertebrae clicked like a macabre necklace in the predator's hand. Part 4. The Abominable Sacrifice. Only Santa, Miss Claus, Frosty, and Bumble remained. They reached a narrow land bridge over a frozen ravine. Go, Bumble rumbled. Standing in the center of the bridge, he discarded his weapons, baring his massive, yellowed fangs. I will hold the path. This is my forest. Santa looked at the beast, the creature he had tamed centuries ago. Godspeed, you beautiful monster. Bumble let out a roar that shook the ice from the trees. The predator emerged from a cloaking field, sensing a worthy opponent. It discarded its mask, revealing a face of mandibles and deep-set, reptilian eyes. The fight was primal. Bumble lunged, his claws tearing deep furrows into the predator's armor. The predator countered with a series of lightning-fast strikes, its blades carving through Bumble's thick hide. The snow monster managed to sink his teeth into the predator's shoulder, the neon green blood spraying into Bumble's mouth. But the predator was a master death. It drove its wrist blades upward, through Bumble's chin and into his brain. The abominable snow monster shuddered once, a final breath of steam escaping his lungs, before his massive body tumbled over the edge of the bridge, lost to the white abyss below. Part 5. The Cold Finality. Frosty, get her to the extraction point, Santa commanded. He was covered in ash, mud, and the blood of his friends. He had abandoned his guns. He only had his axe and a belt of knives. I'm ending this. Nicholas, you can't, Miss Claus cried. Go. Santa watched them disappear into the fog. He knew the creature followed the heat. He looked at a nearby thermal vent and then at the freezing mud of a half-frozen swamp. He stripped to the waist his massive, scarred torso steaming in the cold. He smeared himself from head to toe in the freezing, gray silt. He became a ghost, a barbarian of the waste. He spent hours building traps. He sharpened stakes of frozen oak. He rigged Yukon's remaining explosives. He waited in the shadows of a giant hollowed-out log, his breath held, his heart beating a slow, steady rhythm. The predator arrived. It moved slowly, confused. Its thermal vision scanned the area. But Santa was a cold blur, his body temperature masked by the mud. The creature stepped on the trigger wire. Crack. A massive, sharpened log swung down from the canopy. The predator hissed, barely dodging, but the log smashed into its shoulder, shattering the plasma caster. Santa leaped from the shadows with a roar that echoed the ancient north. Come on, kill me. I'm right here. He swung the obsidian axe. The predator parried with its wrist blades, the sparks flying like festive lights. They traded blows that would have killed lesser men. Santa took a slash across his chest, the blood hot against the cold mud. He responded by burying a combat knife into the predator's thigh. The creature slammed Santa against a tree, its massive hand crushing his throat. Santa grinned, blood coating his teeth. Merry Christmas, you filthy animal. He pulled the pin on the grenade belt he'd strapped to the tree behind the creature. The explosion was a sunburst in the heart of the Siberian night. Santa was thrown 30 feet, landing hard in the slush. He coughed, spitting out a mouthful of snow and gore. He crawled back to the site. The predator was broken, its body shattered, its neon blood lighting up the crater like a radioactive glow stick. The creature looked up at Santa, a wet, clicking sound emerging from its throat. He began to laugh, a distorted playback recording of Jack-in-the-Box's mana cackle. It activated a device on its wrist, a countdown in glowing alien symbols. Santa didn't run. He stood over the dying hunter, his axe raised high. Fragment of a coal for you, Santa growled. The axe fell, cleaving the predator's head in half just as the countdown hit 0. Epilogue. The mushroom cloud of the self-destruct rose over the Siberian wasteland, a pillar of fire in the land of ice. A mile away, Ms. Claus and Frosty watched from the rescue chopper. The pilot looked at the inferno. Nobody could have survived that. But then, out of the smoke and the swirling snow, a figure emerged. He was limping, his skin burned, his beard singed, carrying the severed mask of the hunter in one hand and his blood-stained axe in the other. Santa Claus climbed into the chopper. He didn't say a word. He just took a fresh cigar from the dashboard, lit it, and looked out at the frozen world he had just saved. Home, he said. We have a lot of toys to make, and a lot of empty chairs to toast. The sleigh banked hard, leaving the Siberian bloodbath behind, heading toward the North Star.